I'm gonna tell this in my own voice because that's how it unfolded for me. Not as a press release or a carefully sanded down statement, but as a sequence of moments where personal pain, public power, and media spectacle collided. Because one day I'm working on rockets, cars, neural interfaces, and trying to solve problems that affect millions. And the next day, I'm watching the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, weigh in on the most intimate fracture in my family as if it were a talking point. And that's when something in me snapped, because when your child becomes a symbol in someone else's narrative, especially a narrative wrapped in politics and virtue signaling, it feels like a violation that goes beyond disagreement. It feels like someone has kicked open the door to your living room and started rearranging the furniture while cameras are rolling. And yes, my relationship with my transgender daughter is deeply strained and painful and complicated. And no, it is not something I ever wanted to litigate in public. But suddenly I'm reading headlines and posts where Newsom is positioning himself as morally superior, using my family situation to score points, to paint me as a villain in a story he's telling to his base. And I thought, hold on, you don't get to do that. You don't get to reduce years of private struggle, confusion, heartbreak, and love into a soundbite that flatters your politics. Because being a parent in this situation isn't a slogan, it's waking up at night wondering where things went wrong. It's trying to reconcile your beliefs about biology, psychology, and society with the reality of your own child's choices. It's being told you're hateful when you know you're actually grieving. And when Newsom spoke, it wasn't as a mediator or human being, but as a governor who knows exactly how the media ecosystem works, who knows that invoking my name and my daughter would ignite outrage. And when I responded sharply, people said I was picking a fight. But from my perspective, I was drawing a line. Because there is something profoundly wrong when politicians feel entitled to comment on another person's child as if that child were public property, and the online reaction proved my point almost immediately. With armies of accounts dissecting my family, speculating, mocking, cheering, condemning, all of it feeding the outrage machine. And suddenly the conversation wasn't about empathy or nuance. It was about sides, red versus blue, Musk versus Newsom, tech billionaire versus progressive governor. And I became the stand-in for every argument people want to have about gender, power, and speech. And what frustrates me most is that this kind of discourse actively makes things worse for families going through similar situations. Because instead of space to think, to talk, to heal, everything becomes absolutist. Either you affirm everything instantly, or you're a monster. Either you're a hero or a bigot, and real life just doesn't work that way. Not when emotions are this raw, and when I pushed back at Newsom, I wasn't trying to win an internet battle. I was saying that leaders should show restraint, that they should resist the temptation to exploit personal tragedy for applause, because today it's my family, and tomorrow it could be anyone else's. And the irony is that the same people who accuse me of lacking compassion rarely show any for parents who are struggling to understand rapid cultural shifts while still loving their children. And as the media cycle spun, I watched my words and Newsom's words get clipped, reframed, amplified, stripped of context, turned into weapons, and I realized again how broken our public square has become, where pain is currency and outrage is oxygen, And I don't claim to have all the answers. I don't claim to have handled everything perfectly as a father or as a public figure. But I do know that turning a family rift into a political cudgel helps no one. And if my response came off as harsh, it's because there are moments when silence feels like surrender. When allowing powerful people to speak for you and about you without challenge feels like erasing your own humanity. And so this feud, as they call it, wasn't about ego for me. It was about boundaries, about saying that even in an age of total exposure, there should still be lines that politicians don't cross, because behind every headline is a real family, and behind every slogan is a person trying, imperfectly, to make sense of a world that seems determined to turn private pain into public spectacle. Part 2 of this story is where I started to really see how the machine works in slow motion, because after the initial clash, the so-called feud took on a life of its own, and I could almost map the trajectories of the outrage like orbital paths, predictable and cold, with commentators lining up to tell me what I should feel, how I should speak, how I should parent, and none of them asking whether turning this into a morality play was doing any good at all. And what struck me was how quickly complexity was treated as a defect, how the mere act of expressing discomfort or disagreement was translated into malice. And Newsom's camp played it exactly as you'd expect, issuing statements heavy on empathy language and light on actual understanding, while carefully positioning me as an emblem of everything wrong with powerful men who refuse to submit to the latest ideological script. And I thought about how strange it is that the same culture that claims to value authenticity reacts with fury when someone actually speaks honestly about confusion, grief, or disagreement. Because honesty doesn't fit neatly into campaign messaging, and as the days went on, I kept thinking about my daughter not as a symbol, but as a person. A kid I once held, taught, argued with, laughed with, and lost connection with. And how surreal it was to see that relationship flattened into a binary, moral test administered by strangers. And every time Newsom or anyone like him spoke, it felt less like concern and more like performance. Because real concern is quiet. Real concern doesn't need cameras. And I began to understand that what I was really pushing back against wasn't one governor's comment, but an entire system that rewards intrusion, that turns family trauma into content, that treats disagreement as violence and power as proof of guilt. And people kept asking why I didn't just stay silent, why I didn't take the high road. But the high road often just means letting someone else define you while you smile politely. And I've never been very good at that, especially when the issue cuts this close to the bone. And yes, I'm aware that my words carry weight, that my platform amplifies everything, but that cuts both ways, because when a sitting governor speaks, that's not a neutral act either. That's power talking. And power should be careful when it leans into someone's family. And as the backlash and support swirl together, I noticed something else, that many parents reached out privately, quietly, saying thank you for saying something, for admitting that this is hard, that loving your child doesn't magically erase questions or pain. And those messages mattered more to me than any headline, because they reminded me that behind the noise, there are real people wrestling with the same issues without security teams or PR firms. And if there's one thing this episode clarified for me, it's that we desperately need more humility in public life, more acknowledgement that human relationships are messy and that certainty is often a luxury belief. And I don't expect Newsom to agree with me. That's fine. Disagreement is normal, but I do expect leaders to understand the difference between advocating policy and exploiting a personal wound, and maybe that expectation is naive in the age we live in. But I'd rather be naive than numb, because numbness is how you accept a world where nothing is sacred and everything is fair game. And so this part of the story ends not with reconciliation or victory or some neat moral bow, but with a clearer sense of what I'm willing to push back against and why. Because even if the public never sees past the caricatures, I know that some lines are worth drawing, even when drawing them makes the fire burn hotter.